So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for this Similarweb webinar, Retail Trends 2018, the Retail Apocalypse and the Rise of Luxury Brands. So what we wanted to do today was walk through some of the most interesting trends that we've seen in the retail landscape, what they could mean, and what the strategies are that we're seeing that are enabling brands to thrive in this environment. So today, I am Ethan Chernovsky. I'm the Director of Corporate Marketing here at Similarweb, and I am joined by my colleague, Geetit Greenberg, our Director of Digital Insights.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Really excited to be walking through this. And to give you a sense of what we're going to do, we're going to give you a very short introduction into Similarweb, who we are, and then we're going to dive right into the content. At the end, we will have a Q&A. And so at any point, if there's something that interests you, please feel free to use the button that says Q&A and send us over a question, and we'll make sure to get to it at the end. So again, let's start off with a quick introduction to Similarweb. So who are we? We are the world's leading market intelligence company. We give insights on every mobile app, on every website, desktop and mobile web across the internet. Our market intelligence solutions enable brands to see what's happening in the digital world, what's happening in their industries, what's happening with search and advertising and the like, so that they can make the decisions necessary to grow their businesses online. How do we do it? So first of all, we leveraged the world's largest global panel with hundreds of millions of devices. We have partners with global ISP data, public data sources, and then we process that all through an incredibly sophisticated technology layer that was built by our R&D team to make sure that we are producing the best possible insights. And then we produce that for our customers in the form of our SaaS platform, through our API and integrations, and through services and our consulting offerings. You can also visit our website to check out our free offering and get a taste of what Similarweb could mean for your business. Who do we do this for in the retail space? Many companies around the world, thousands of customers around the world, including some of the largest players in the sector like eBay, Target, and Walmart, and many others. So now we can already dig into to the fun part, which is this market-winning strategies within the retail space. And it's important to kind of note that what we talk about the retail apocalypse, it's often referring to what's happening offline with the closing of stores. But Geetit, this isn't just something that's happening in the offline world, it's actually happening online as well.
Yeah, so thanks, Susan. So what we're looking at in this slide is we're looking at the traffic for top shopping sites in the US. And what we're seeing from that slide is that actually retailers don't have it easy online as well, because the shopping category is highly, highly concentrated. Amazon alone is 30% traffic share. And if you combine in Walmart and eBay, we already reach 50% of the traffic that goes only to 3 sites. If we talk about JCPenney or Macy's, they're more around just 1% of that cake of traffic. So it's very hard to survive and to thrive in this concentrated environment. But what we're seeing is that actually, and this is why we are all here to learn, that some companies do succeed to grow and thrive under these circumstances. From what we're seeing, all you need is kind of the audacity to think outside of the box and do things a little bit different.
And one of the first examples we're going to dive into is Uniqlo, and what we called attracting underserved markets, or really getting creative with the way that you reach target audiences that could be a key part of your market. And we're seeing that even again, amidst this retail apocalypse, Uniqlo is growing.
Uniqlo is growing 11%, age 1 over age 1, 2017 versus 18. And Uniqlo is a specialty private label apparel site like Gap and H&M, and all of their competitors are losing traffic while they're gaining traffic. So let's dive in and see what exactly are they doing to gain traffic in this situation. So we wanted to look at their traffic sources first to understand if they're doing anything different. And what we can clearly see is that although they get the highest percentage of traffic coming from direct, like their competitors, you can see that organic search is significantly less important for Uniqlo, and they're more focused on social and other channels as well, like email and display ads and so forth. But we want to focus our analysis right now on social. So usually when we see social as a significant source of traffic, it's usually the case of Facebook being the main source of traffic, YouTube being the main source of social traffic. But for Uniqlo, 70%, we were surprised to find out that 70% of their social traffic is actually coming from Reddit. And not only that 70% is coming from Reddit, most of this traffic is coming from two subreddits that are dedicated to men fashion. And you can see that on the left hand of the slide. And as a result of this, when you look at the right hand side of the slide, you can see that since the subreddits are focused on men fashion, it influences the actual demographic of the Uniqlo site. And if we compare it to its competitor, H&M, Zara, which all offer men clothing as well, we can see that the percentage of male users is much higher on Uniqlo than in any other competitor.
And there's a really important element here, because one of the things that we've spoken about in past webinars and in other pieces of content, and it's obviously not going to be a surprise to many of the people listening, but social traffic has been an area of struggle for a lot of brands because of dipping traffic from Facebook. We've had a new change in Twitter, which can impact the way the traffic comes from. But here's a brand that said, we can look at the social sphere in a very different way, and we can use it to target a very specific audience that is helping them drive growth. I mean, again, the graph on the right basically tells the whole story. You're looking at 4 major brands in, American Eagle, J. Crew, H&M, and Zara that are still seeing a massive amount from their female audience, while Uniqlo has been able to turn that tide in their favor by effectively targeting through Reddit. And they're not the only brand that's doing something interesting. We actually see a lot coming from luxury brands, not the ones that you place necessarily at the edge of the technological wave, but in this case, we're seeing some really sophisticated and cutting-edge strategies coming out of these classic brands like Neiman Marcus.
Yeah, so I think the luxury brand as a whole is an interesting story, because what we're seeing in the past year and a half, 2 years, is really a rise in luxury brands, and we'll talk about it in a second. And I think what we're seeing is part of a bigger phenomena where we're seeing other companies like Dollar General, really cheap retailers are also growing, and also the high-end retailers are also doing very, very well, while the middle class kind of retailers are more struggling. And I think luxury brands in the past 2 years are doing something very, very interesting, and we'll get to it in a second, that is basically claiming their spot. And so Neiman Marcus, very interesting story. When we're comparing Neiman Marcus to its competitors, Saks Fifth Avenue, for example, is losing 8% of its traffic. Bloomingdale is stagnant, and Neiman Marcus is seeing 13.5 growth increase in traffic, H1 versus H1. And we were wondering what happened there. What exactly are they doing that is different from their competitors? So this is kind of evident of what they're doing. What we're seeing here is their percentage of total traffic from paid search. So you can see that in January 2017, it starts somewhere in the 13% range. It climbs up to more than 30% during shopping season, and then it drops a little bit, but it's still very high, around the 28%. This is very, very unusual and significant. And we wanted to dig even deeper and see what's the source of it. And what we're seeing is fairly interesting. What we're seeing is, first of all, in the left-hand side of the slide, what we're seeing is an increase in the total amount of keywords that they're bidding on. So if in Q1 2017, they bidded over 1,400 keywords, in 2018, same period, Q1, they're already more than doubled, and they're now bidding on 3,200 keywords. And this is not just bidding on more keywords, it's changing their paid search strategy. Because if we look at Q1, we're seeing that the non-branded share of these keywords, of the non-branded keywords, was only 29%. And in Q1 2018, it's jumped to 57%. And this is interesting because their strategy is really around the non-branded keywords, and especially those high-end brands. So they're bidding on words like Gucci and Burberry and etc. So their effort is around those luxury brands, and they want to bring them in.
No, it is a very important point, and it's an interesting kind of recognition where essentially Neiman Marcus is saying, we have done a tremendous amount to own our brand online, but being a marketplace for high-end goods, it's not just enough to own their brand. They need to own the brands that they sell as well. And so being effective on the keywords like Gucci, like you mentioned, is going to enable them to bring in that high intent traffic and the people who are looking for the right things online. And on the flip side of this equation is the luxury brands themselves.
Yeah, they're also fighting for their place in the digital world, and they're actually doing a very good job. Let's start with Gucci. So Gucci enjoyed a 20% increase in traffic over the past 18 months. That's super impressive for Gucci, and Gucci were focusing on their brand. So what Gucci realized is that they don't want to miss out on people that are searching for Gucci brand name. So if you look at their mix, their traffic sources mix, during H1 2017, branded traffic, which is composed of direct traffic and branded search, was up to about 85%. And during H1 2018, that accumulated into more than 90%. So that's a significant growth in traffic coming in from brand-related sources. And it's even stronger because we're seeing other sources all decreasing in total amount of traffic, and an increase of 41.5% in total branded traffic, which is amazing.
It's not, just Gucci who's doing it either.
Yeah, it's also Fendi. So Fendi, if you look to the left, you can see that Fendi grew Q2 2017 versus Q2 2018. They grew with 63%. And what they're doing is very interesting. They're also investing in paid keywords. And as you can see, the top keywords that they are investing in. So with the generic brand keywords, you can see that still most of their traffic is coming from organic. So with Fendi belt, but once you go down to the long tail, where you have keywords that are related to specific products, high intent searches, they don't want to leave anything for the luck, right? They want to make sure that this traffic comes to them, and therefore they would bid on keywords like Fendi Chelsea boots and Fendi men wallet. Like when they identify a keyword with high intent related to it, they would not give up and they would bid on it to get the traffic to their specific site.
I think it's something that we see quite a bit of when you want to have a really sophisticated digital strategy. It is understanding at all levels how you should be targeting. So when you're looking at something like Fendi, they take a very specific approach to their keywords and making sure that they want to have all the ones that are related to Fendi, but they're able to create that level of differentiation between the terms that are going to bring them more generic traffic and the terms that are going to bring them higher intent. And that is the type of level that applies to any brand, where can we find, where is it worth it for us to be spending more? Where do we want to be having the same type of interactions?
Yeah, I think the story is even bigger than that, because what we're seeing here is the phenomena of trying to balance out between having your brand assets and owning your traffic versus cooperating with partners and distributors like Amazon or Neiman Marcus that we mentioned before. So it could be very, very well that on some keywords, user might actually convert better on partner side, like Amazon. But I think what Fendi does here is identifying the keywords that they don't want their users to see other brands and other options, but they want them to come to their site and convert on their site.
Exactly. And I want to pause for 1 minute and just address something that's going on in the chat. And, to reflect what Paul said, when we talk about branded search, we're referring to people searching with terms that have to do with the specific company. So if I'm Gucci and someone searches for Gucci in Google, that would be a branded search. Whereas if they search for beautiful, exactly, pants would be a non-branded search. And the other piece is, this is not just Google search. Obviously, this is across search engines, but Google does tend to be the king of that landscape. And moving on, there's obviously some really important takeaways to walk away with from these two perspectives. And the biggest one is maybe the most obvious, but equally the most important. And it's not, the game isn't over, right?
You can definitely still, there's a phrase that we're saying, you can still dance with the giant. It's true that this category is really concentrated. It's true that Amazon takes Amazon and giants, right, Walmart and eBay take 50% of the traffic, but there's still other 50 left. There's still room to grow. But in order to grow, you need to be sophisticated in your digital strategy. Creative, and but success is.
I think the first kind of takeaway from Uniqlo is really important here, because we're saying that the kind of the headline that would be going on for social traffic over the last few months would be, it's decreasing, it's trouble. Good luck if you're relying on social. Yet you look at a company like Uniqlo who said, yes, there are issues with kind of maximizing social traffic at the moment, but maybe there are other areas where their potential still exists. And for them, it was within Reddit. But it's not just about the channels you use, it's about the way you appreciate the power of brands and how to leverage those brands, right?
Yeah, it's also understanding your brand power and making sure that you're optimizing and maximizing your brand power. And again, that this takes us again to the earlier point that sometimes maybe, and this is something that you need to check and balance, maybe your brand in some cases is better off in partner sites and those giants and or in the Neiman Marcuses of the world. And sometimes you want to own your user base, you want to own the traffic. So it's a very delicate balance that you need to take into consideration. And I think, Fendi uses this balance in a very interesting, sophisticated way when they say, okay, if a user already have a high intent, I want him converting on my site rather than going to partners' sites.
And this kind of takes us to the next piece of the puzzle, which is, affiliate strategies, which is becoming an increasingly critical, it's already among the more important elements and only becoming more so. And the king of it is the king of retail. It's online, it's Amazon.
Yeah, so Amazon has always had a very good and sophisticated affiliate partner programs, and what we're currently seeing is that although they already have a thriving and successful affiliate program, they keep looking forward because they see it as a source of growth. So although Amazon has 5 times the traffic than Walmart has, they're still considered both of them to be the true giants of the shopping category. But while with Amazon, referral traffic, meaning partnership traffic, affiliate traffic is 6% of all traffic, and it's actually the third most important traffic source. For Walmart, it's a little bit less, it's 3%. So if we look at the total referral traffic share, it shows us that Amazon is dominating and having 95% share of referral traffic.
Let's address kind of another question that came up in chat that was a more or less, philosophical question, and much more practical. I mean, maybe let's take a step back and just explain what we're talking about when we're saying affiliate traffic and referral traffic.
Okay, so when we say affiliate traffic or referral traffic, so what we're saying actually, and I'll skip to the next slide, what we're saying is we're saying actually traffic that is coming from another site and is based on a commercial agreement between the two partners. So for example, if we look at Ebates, or Slick Deals, which is a coupon site, every time Ebates or Slick Deals send traffic into Amazon or any other retail, they have a commercial, they gain money from it. That's their business model. So they get either for each click or for each conversion or a percentage of conversion. It depends on the business model. It depends on the commercial agreement, but there is a commercial agreement between the two companies. And a lot of companies like Amazon and Walmart have an affiliate program, meaning you can be a part of a network of sites sending traffic to Amazon or Walmart, and you have a very good, relatively good commercial terms. So if we look, at the two graphs, the Ebates one and the Nintendo one, what we can learn is that the fight on the game is still on when it comes to referral traffic. So you can see that referral traffic from Ebates to Amazon to Walmart has almost disappeared. It was around 25% July 2000, just a year ago. And as well, we're seeing traffic being sent from Nintendo more and more to Amazon and less to Walmart. Another perspective of this phenomena is Restyle. Restyle is the influencer network in the apparel industry, and they did a very interesting change in the past year. So if we look at during January 2017, Nordstrom was their main outgoing traffic source target. So they were sending 20% of their traffic from Restyle was going to Nordstrom. And Amazon was only getting 5% of Restyle outgoing links. You can see that they changed just around 2018 during the shopping season, and now Amazon is over 20%, and Nordstrom is now become the second one with around 10% of the traffic that is going to that is coming from rewards site.
When we talk about conversions, what we are talking about is people who actually, the percentage of people who are going to the site who are actually completing a purchase and ending up actually buying something on the site.
Right.
And the element that's really interesting here when you refer to a company like Reward Style as opposed to a Ebates or even a Nintendo is you're seeing the tremendous diversity that exists within the affiliate landscape. So on the one end, you can have a straight coupon site where I'm going with the intention of seeing if there's something to purchase, as opposed to a brand site where there is a relationship there, even though if they're going to send me to Amazon, though they might otherwise have an interest in just selling straight through their own site, to the other end where you have, you know, influencer networks that are able to send high intent traffic based on what they're doing in something that we wouldn't necessarily directly connect. And so the diversity here speaks to the strategic opportunity and the way to tailor this to any brand for any specific purpose, considering their specific audience and the goals that they have in place. And it takes us nicely to kind of, you know, the summation of our key takeaways, both on the affiliate side and overall.
Right. So I think the first thing that is like an overarching key takeaway from this entire presentation is that you need to find the right balance of how you dance with the giants, how much you fight for traffic, and how much you say, okay, I'm going to play the game and I'm going to send some of my traffic to partners' sites because I believe that they have the velocity to enable better conversion on their site than on my site. So it's a very interesting balance that you need to take into consideration. I think the second thing is, again, we know there are giants in this category. It's very hard. Retailers don't have it easy offline and online these days, but we know that the giants of the category are viewing partnership as a source of growth. And this is something that we need to take into consideration where we want to position ourselves in the market.
I think, and it's worth noting that everything you're doing as a brand, it requires a degree of understanding how it tailors to your specific goals. So, you know, one of the questions that we'll get to in a moment is, you know, it was a question about Reddit. Reddit might not be the right thing for you. For you or your company, it might be Facebook, or it might be another channel entirely. It might be email marketing. I mean, it's the same holds true for when you're approaching affiliates. It's understanding the balance, what's going to speak to your audience, how can you test, who can you learn from both within the retail sector and beyond. And it's understanding it speaks to the fundamental need to understand what is happening within the wider market. What are the strategies that are people trying? Where is their complementary potential? How do you identify the right partners and the like? These are all really critical elements to succeeding now.
Measure yourself. Like, don't be afraid to try new things, be dynamic, and always go back and measure yourself against your competition, right?
It's a really important element. And so what we want to do right now is get to some of the questions that were asked both through email and in the Q&A. And I want to start with a question that came through from Andrew, and he spoke about, you know, specifically about Reddit when we were discussing Uniqlo. You know, what's the best way to get a conversation started on Reddit? And I think it actually takes us back to the point we just made, which is you have to go to all of these different places. And with social, it's actually a great place to try things organically before you upgrade. But take a look at the things your competitors are doing. See where your landscape and your immediate, you know, competitors right above you, right behind you, where they're getting a lot of their traffic from. Are they spending a lot of time on Twitter? Are they spending a lot of time on Facebook? Is it Reddit? Is there actually another channel that they're driving value from? And the more you understand what they're doing, the more you'll have a sense to know who should you be looking at in order to kind of model yourself after, and who should you be looking at in terms of kind of strategies to avoid or that might not work for you as well. Another question that came in from Douglas was, he noticed on the Neiman Marcus slide that there was a peak in spending, and then it kind of dropped off. And he asked, was this they had already achieved their goals and therefore it dropped? But I think we kind of attribute this more to a seasonality.
Yeah. So with paid search, there are a few things that you need to take into consideration. First of all, is seasonality with retail. Starting from October, even November, December definitely is a high season for retail. This is where you should invest. The competition for traffic becomes more intense and this is the time to invest more in paid. I think it could also be related to, you know, ROI. They can measure. The beautiful thing about paid is you can actually measure the ROI in a pretty simple way and know if bidding on a specific keyword is or in a specific budget is actually worthwhile when you compare it to the growth in conversions that you have due to it.
Sure. You know, one of the questions was, first of all, yes, we will be sending us a copy of this recording. It'll be available. We're hoping tomorrow, and it will be sent around. But if it's a little bit longer than that, please forgive the slight delay. But it will certainly be going out. And I want to get to a question from John, who asked, you know, a lot of these, I think he was referring specifically when we were talking about the luxury brands. He said it's a good illustration for brands that are established and trading off their brand name. But what have you seen with brands that don't have this awareness? What routes have they taken to cut through the noise? And I think we kind of almost, we had a nice sandwich at the beginning and the end of areas where there's a lot of opportunity. One is getting a little bit more creative and understanding, hey, Reddit might be the channel for me, or channel X email might be a really great opportunity for me to drive value. It's a great example. You know, we're seeing a lot of brands do that, gain tremendous value with not branded keywords.
Just example from the non-fashion industry, the pet food company, forget his name, not Petco, never mind. So I'll remember in a second. So they penetrated the market leveraging long tail keywords, both paid and organic, and they grew. Oh, it's chewy. They grew like accelerated growth. So there's definitely a way for non-brand names to find their niche in the market. You just need to find where your competitors are still not dominating and where there is a blue ocean that you can get into.
There are complementary relationships. And this, you know, we talk about this across sectors, but think of the word affiliate somehow strips away one of the really important elements of focusing on your referral strategy, which is finding partners, complementary people who are going to bring you the values that you might not possess yourself. Are there companies who have a similar type of audience where you could create a relationship that is win-win? And that's what affiliate speaks to, and it's what Amazon has done incredibly well, but there are still opportunities to do that to grow the brand very effectively in the short term. I want to get, well, this is a great question for us. You know, we have a question. What is the best way to find out what your competitors are using in terms of traffic sites? The best way is to use the leading market intelligence platform, Similarweb. The second best way is to also use Similarweb. There's nothing better than us. But yeah, their products like that are gonna give you a really great sense. And it's, when we talk about market intelligence, this is what we're speaking of. The ability to see what's happening in the wider digital landscape so you can understand what other people are doing. And it's more than competitors. Competitors are an amazing, important first step to measure against and to understand. But, you know, we just pulled a great example from, the dog food space. You're going to get amazing ideas when you see what people are doing for success, or even, we talk a lot in the travel sector about non-branded keywords and the importance from entering the market perspective. So there's so much to learn. There's so much you can gain from having that digital viewpoint on what's happening online. I want to get to a few other questions here before we have to kind of wrap up. And we had one from Bonnie, and it says, does bidding on keywords give you exclusive first result ownership, or does it work on a scale basis? The more you pay, the higher up on the search results you land. And the answer is the latter. There's, we showed it to you with the Neiman Marcus coming right before Gucci and Fendi. You're competing with each other over your own brand terms. And so understanding how much you want to get your own brand terminology, how much you're ready to compete on other brands is going to be an element of any successful strategy. And maybe this will be the last question. We have a question that was sent in from Sumita, and he said, if you're a successful brand, what's the best way to handle e-commerce without disturbing, or to try new strategies without damaging existing relationships or strategies?
I think it's a good question. I think first of all, it's a very generic answer. I think you should A/B test. Start off with a few tests which are small in scale and see if it works. If it works, then of course optimize for it, scale it. And if it doesn't work, you can kill it and no damage was done. So I think A/B testing in general in the digital world and being dynamic is the key to success.
And we're gonna do one more only because I really like the question. But we have a question from Hassan, and he says essentially, you know, there are so many digital channels. They all have their challenges. How important is creative content, and how are brands taking advantage of these channels, especially through video to scale? And I'll tell you both from a personal experience from what we're doing at Similarweb, but also what we're seeing elsewhere is that, you know, it's creative content is really important, and it's, you know, video is certainly a huge element of that, and, you know, YouTube and the likes, and all of the new app platforms that are launching greater levels of video are really important engagement channels. But it doesn't just end there. I think classic forms of content, like a really strong blog, good white papers, the like, can still be really effective. The key is understanding what type of content is going to work. And, you know, in our platform, it's a section called Popular Pages that lets you see what the, you know, what's the content that's working best. But
we always need, so you know, some companies made their fortune out of the right content. So NerdWallet, you know, they were asking the right question, the questions that their users were wondering about, and they provided the answer. So they made their fortune from creating the right content. But you have to remember that content is not the distribution. It's not the user acquisition channel. So content can support the social user acquisition channel. It can support the SEO acquisition channel. It can support the paid acquisition channel, but it's not an acquisition channel of itself.
Yeah, it's a really critical point. And we just wanted to, you know, first of all, thank you, Gitit, for being part of this today. And thank you everyone for joining us. If you have other questions, you know, we obviously really enjoy talking about this, but definitely reach out to us. Ask some questions, set up a demo if it's really interesting, and at least get a walkthrough of the platform and be able to ask these questions within your own specific context. And we're going to send around an on-demand version of this so that you'll be able to kind of share it and watch it, you know, watch it again if you, or listen again if you want to hear the sounds of our voices. And please, you know, visit similarweb.com, check out our blog where we have lots of other amazing content. Check out our resources pages, lots of great white papers that will dig in deeper on a lot of these topics. And thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of the week.